great conviction, someone might be quick to label me as, oh, she's a strong woman, or I've heard artists described as angry because they've really pushed a lot of the crap out of the way to make themselves present. And they're, in fact, I don't believe, are angry. They're just really trying to be seen like everyone else. So I still feel like there are stereotypes that are present. But if you call someone on them, they're not quick to admit, or they may not realize, because it's so embedded in our culture, how a woman is perceived, what a woman is, and what a woman can do. And yet there are a lot of women out there, which I'm so glad to see, behind the engineering board or composing the music, and not being just looked at as the front person with a face and a body and an image to convey.
Who has mentored you? I think that you should share a little bit about that. I think that's really profound, because the people that mentor us often don't know the profound difference they're making. They just think they're just trying to help, or they give some recommendations or suggestions. But a mentor is different. A mentor is really behind our success and our happiness. And I was wondering if you could share about the mentoring relationships that you've had, and even up to today, if you would like to.
Sure. I would say, as of recent, or really in recent years, recent being the last 10, 15 years, I feel like I've been strongly mentored by one of my closest colleagues, Robert Scott, who has really given me some sage advice. And it's funny, we're the same age, and yet sometimes when one has experiences that the other doesn't have, particularly in the industry, he's very good and quick to rest my mind if I have any, gnawing questions about things or concerns, or whether it's a technical issue or an issue on management, or how to handle things on the path of the career, especially if you're doing things yourself. And even when I say doing things myself, it's not that I am completely independent and don't depend on anybody, because obviously I do depend on people for advice and for some basic direction. But Rob Scott has been one of the biggest influences on me, I would say, recently, as has Corinne Drury and Andy Connell of Swing Out Sister, in writing for them, writing the liner notes for them, and developing a friendship with them. I would also say that they've provided some really great advice and thoughts on music production, ideas on listening, and just things that are sometimes unspoken. When you spend time with people and you see their habits, you observe how they do their work, it also can be a very strong influence.
I think what they've done in the music business is so profound and exciting, and what they've been able to capture. I mean, after all of these years, and they're still doing it. What an extraordinary experience.
Really, it is an extraordinary experience, and it is all about perseverance. Not many people are aware that they've never broken up. When you mention a group like Swing Out Sister to, 9 out of 10 people, they'll say, "Oh, are they back together?" It's like, well, they've never broken up. They've continually put out work, and they've continually honed their craft, and they've kept themselves open to experiences, but kept true to their musical and stylistic convictions. And so in that sense, they've been a huge, huge influence on me. I would say I was also influenced by architects like John Pawson and Mies van der Rohe and Johanna Plasma, people who work with space in a sense that is about incorporating what's around you and the environment, rather than oversaturating your senses with ornate visuals. Again, a translation to music. I love artists who cross over in an interdisciplinary fashion, like Laurie Anderson or DJ Spooky
What did they cross over into? What did they do?
Well, they're primarily musicians, composers, who also speak about politics and art in a way that I would say enlightens their audience rather than just, again, dictates to them or conveys it in a dry fashion. They convey it in a very fresh perspective. DJ Spooky put it once that he feels that we should wipe the slate of history clean in order to insert fresh narrative, and that's how I see my work going, because I like to create soundscapes or recreate personal narratives, and I'm starting to use those techniques of spoken word and narrative in my work. And when I look to people like that, in addition to people like Janet Cardiff, who's an installation artist, she often uses her voice as well as sound bites from film noir, old films, dialogues that she'll record in the middle of the night when she wakes up from a dream. She'll record that dream, and you'll hear back what sounds almost like this bizarre thread, this bizarre storyline, but there's something to it that's very personal, and there's something to it that she incorporates that gives the audience, the listener, a fresh perspective on how we hear things, how we imagine things, with, again, sometimes with a visual and sometimes without.
Have you ever met Burt Bacharach?
I have. I've had the great pleasure of meeting him a few times, and while both times were brief, I was impressed that he knew who I was. The first time I met Burt Bacharach was in '97 out at Westbury Music Fair. He was giving a performance, and it was at the same time, or rather a few weeks after, Swing Out Sister had opened up for him at Royal Albert Hall in London.
Wow, I didn't know they did that.
They did that. Now, that was a great thing. Now, I was invited out to that show, but unfortunately couldn't get a ticket to fly out in time for it when I found out about it. And so I knew I would see Burt down the road. And this happened to be the same year that Swing Out Sister had been touring their Shapes and Patterns album, for which I wrote the liner notes.
I don't want to take you off course, but I eventually want you to explain what the liner notes are so we understand.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I can do that. Here was Burt Bacharach coming out from backstage saying, "Oh, I've heard all about you. You're really a great writer." And I didn't even have it in me to faint, let alone that. All I could do was just grin and put my hand on his shoulder and say thank you. Because I find here's a man who is so richly cinematic in the way he writes, the way he composes music. And about liner notes, should I start talking about liner notes?
If you'd like, sure. I think we should know what they are. It started at the album time, didn't it?
Mm-hmm. Liner notes I don't want to say past tense because they still are. Liner notes are the commentary that you would see on the back of an album cover. And now in the age of CDs and downloadable materials, you can still get liner notes, but more often is the case that the liner notes are embedded in something and that you have to take steps to get to them to read them. Liner notes on record albums back in the day when record albums were the main media, you could just flip an album cover over while you were perusing it in the record shop and read this great commentary.
I loved it. Oh my God, I miss it.
It was my favorite thing to do when I was a child, listening to, say, The Fifth Dimension. And
yay, I love them. Marilyn McCoo's right here in town.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Nice. I love The Fifth Dimension, and I love the music. I always wanted to know who wrote that music, and that's how I found out Laura Nyro was.
Oh, the great Laura Nyro. God,
and
I loved her too.
Liner notes have the beauty to connect who the writer is to the performer or the process of the performance, how things come together. It often too colorizes or creates a